Good morning. Good morning. Hi. My name is Andrew Schumann, and on behalf of our hosts, the Eleazar Wheelock Society, the Dartmouth Apologia, the Association of Christian Tuck Students, I welcome you to this first Wheelock Conference, integrating faith, reason, and vocation. I'm a Dartmouth class of 2010, the founding editor-in-chief of Apologia, and a founding board member of the Eleazar Wheelock Society. I would like to begin by sharing with you a passage from a book that had a significant influence on me when I first began thinking through the topics we'll be exploring today. In his autobiography, Surprised by Joy, C.S. Lewis reflects upon his experience prior to the Christian faith. He writes, "Such then was the state of my imaginative life. Over and against it stood the life of my intellect. The two hemispheres of my mind were at the sharpest contrast. On the one side, a many-islanded sea of poetry and myth. On the other, a glib and shallow rationalism. Nearly all that I loved, I believed to be imaginary. Nearly all that I believed to be real, I thought grim and meaningless." As Lewis's personal story unfolds, he comes to see that the Christian faith offers a way to bring together the life of the spirit and the life of the intellect. It was a bringing together that Lewis would later describe as a marriage between his head, his heart, and his hands. In our academic community, faith and reason are often considered to be fundamentally at odds, as if occupying opposite endpoints on a single axis. On this view, one may possess a high degree of faith and limited reason, or a high degree of reason and limited faith. We hope to suggest and even demonstrate that rigorous academic study is not opposed to deep faith in God. Rather, the two can and should grow together in what one might call the fourth quadrant of intellectual life. Perhaps you resonate with aspects of Lewis's experience. If so, you may know what it is like to have the two hemispheres of your mind at the sharpest contrast, left wondering how it all fits together. Perhaps you even recall the people along your path who allowed you to glimpse, maybe even for the first time, what a life of reason, faith, and vocation looks like in a harmonious relationship. As organizers of this conference, we believe that the Christian worldview offers a rational, viable, and liberating foundation for integrating life, learning, and faith. We support students in intellectually credible explorations of historic Christian thought, the integration of life and learning, ethics and vocation, faith and reason. We work with students, faculty, alumni, and community members to develop learning opportunities anchored in scholarly inquiry, historical accuracy, and critical reasoning. We believe that these opportunities will help create an environment of intellectual curiosity and the honest pursuit of truth. Students on the Dartmouth campus are already discovering the implications of historic Christian faith on life's moral, vocational, and civic dimensions. As a part of this ongoing effort, we would like to welcome you to this first Wheelock Conference. This conference aims to show that faith and reason can truly be integrated, and that each can inform and enrich the other. Today, we have brought nationally recognized leaders, many of whom are Dartmouth alumni, to talk about their experiences with the Christian faith. They will discuss how their faith informs their worldview in life and vocation, and how they try to live out truth in their vocations, indeed their whole lives, through honest inquiry, sound scholarship, and serving the community. This conference is the result of a unique collaboration at Dartmouth. Students, faculty, staff, and alumni have been active participants in making this happen. Collaboration can be rare in academia, especially in matters of faith, and so this is a great asset at Dartmouth. We offer our special thanks to the many people who have given so generously of their time, our keynote speaker and panelists, the staff of the Dartmouth Apologia, the Tuck School for hosting us here today, the Eleazar Wheelock Society, its board, and especially its founding administrator, Tessa Winter, and the many others who have worked so hard to make this conference possible. We are immensely grateful for the time, funds, and effort of all those who have so generously contributed to this event. We open this morning with an honored guest who has a remarkable personal story. Born and raised in extreme poverty in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kadita A.T. Tshibaka, Dartmouth 70, Tuck 71, came to Dartmouth College in the mid-60s through the help of a timely scholarship and the hard work of his family. He received a BA in economics and later an MBA from the Tuck School. Mr. Tshibaka worked for Citibank for 33 years, eventually becoming the head of corporate credit risk for emerging markets at Citigroup, a role in which he oversaw operations in 77 countries. Most recently, he served as interim president and CEO of Opportunity International, one of the world's leading microfinance organizations, serving over 1 million entrepreneurs among the aspiring poor of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. Please join me in welcoming A.T. Tshibaka. Thank you very much.
So it's in fear and trembling that I'm standing before you. So to try and recoup a little bit, I'm going to show you a little DVD, 2 minutes, and then I'll come back here. So let's do that.
Opportunity International provides loans, savings, insurance, and training to over 1 million people living in poverty. Opportunity clients use these financial services to start or expand a business, provide for their families, create jobs for their neighbors, and build a safety net for the future. In Bungoma, Kenya, Judith Gadaya used Opportunity loans and training to grow her business from a small street stand to a thriving electronics store.
My mother was a business lady. She used to make pots. So I was introduced to business actually when I was a small girl because I came from a very poor family. I just started business from there, and now I'm a business lady.
A pioneer in crop insurance and educational lending, Opportunity is now using innovative technologies to expand access to banking services, especially in rural areas. A non-profit with over 30 years of experience in microfinance, Opportunity International enables people to work their way out of poverty, transforming their lives and their children's futures.
Thank you. I think now I can do it. Andrew, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for what you're doing here. I'm so impressed with you. I bless you. Thank you. I really would like to acknowledge David Allman. David and I met at his club in Atlanta last year. David is the one who broke the news to me first about the Eleazar Wheelock Society and invited me, planted the idea of, wouldn't it be great if you could come and share your story? So David, thank you. I want to thank Greg, Fair Brothers, Tessa Winter, just for the guidance and the instructions that you gave me in terms of how I was to conduct myself today. I hope I conduct myself properly. And Tessa, from the information and news given last night by Greg, I really spent the night very, very worried that I was going to make it late, at this session today, But I remembered Greg saying, you cannot afford to be late because you don't want to stand in front of the wrath of Tessa. So this morning, I had set my alarm for 7 o'clock. I woke up 27 minutes before that, just to make sure. But thank you very much for all of your hard work in helping to organize this place. I really would like to extend my appreciation to so many, as Andrew was saying, in the Tuck and Dartmouth community who worked together to bring about this inaugural conference of the Wheelock Society here. My prayer is that this will be the first of many successful conferences where the impact will be felt, not just here in Hanover, but beyond Hanover and beyond America. And I was very encouraged last night, Andrew, to hear that other campuses are already emulating what you guys are doing here, and that we are even having already some seeds planted in London. So my prayer is that it will go deep and broad. So thank you for the initiative. Today, I just want to make sure that as we all ponder some of the things that we're going to be talking about, whether it's from this first talk that I'm going to be sharing with you, or in the panel discussions, that we go from here determined not just to ponder and think through, what we will have heard, but considering what we could do, each one of us, to make a difference in this world. So I thought perhaps the way to introduce what is on my heart and in my mind would be to talk about my story. And as I share my story, to weave snippets of events and things that have shaped, my life. And I cannot do justice to the whole, life that I have lived this past 60 years or so. In 25 minutes, I can't do that. So I am very grateful that we will have a fire chat. You will have probably lots of questions. I'll leave you hanging somewhere, maybe to give you the incentive to come to the fire chat, for more questions, and then we can go deeper. And as somebody said yesterday, you can learn a few more secrets about my life. So let me start. I am married to a wonderful, wonderful woman from Minnesota, Priscilla Tshibaka. Priscilla was a Smith College graduate and Columbia Teachers School graduate. She used to visit here quite often. And back then we had just males here at Dartmouth. And somehow we connected. And she's my love for 38 years. We have 2 children, a son who is a pastor of a small church now in Alexandria, Virginia, with 2 wonderful grandchildren. As I speak to you now, my son and his wife are in Ethiopia adopting our 3rd grandchild. So next week, by this time, we will be celebrating another addition to the Tshibaka family. We have a daughter who is working in New York City. And beyond my immediate family, as you would expect, I come from Africa. I have an extended family that counts in the thousands. So I was raised by, all of us, 5 of us kids were raised by my mother, because I lost my father when I was 3 years old. To raise us, my mother would go make alcohol from corn. Back when I was growing up, it was during the Belgian times. It was illegal to actually make alcohol. So it was around about 11 o'clock at night, midnight, it's pitch dark. That's when my mother would drag me and we would go to this forest miles away. She would do her thing, and then we would bring back the alcohol before daybreak. With that alcohol, she would have men go till fields for us to plant manioc, plant corn, plant whatever was needed. They would finish the day, come back in the evening, and she would pay them with, some good food, some chicken that she would have killed and cooked, and some alcohol. So they would drink, they would be happy, and the next day they would be back to go, to go work. So, but it was very tough for my mother alone to do the job. My brothers had to leave high school, still young, they wanted to start working to contribute and to help. All of them together, from whatever little they would earn, they made it possible for me to have tuition that paid for my education. And when I talk about tuition, please don't think in terms of thousands of dollars. I'm talking probably $100 or something like that. But they all needed to work together to pull it together so that I would have the opportunity to go to school. So they did make sacrifices for me. In the early 60s, for those who have studied the history of Africa, Congo went through some tough times. That's when we had our independence. We had to move as refugees from one part of the country to another. My mother had to travel some 200 kilometers with whatever we had of worth in this world, our possessions. All of them were on her head. And among those very valued possessions was a Singer sewing machine. So as we moved from one part of the country to another, that's what helped us at least reconstruct our lives, because she hired somebody to sew. With that, we had a little income. We also had the help of the United Nations, who provided food and what have you. So it was tough growing up. I am also remembering that early on, I was probably 5, 6 years old, because my mom and as my brothers and sister were trying to find some way of helping the family. They just couldn't take care of me. And my mother sent me to stay with my maternal uncles. You've seen those poster pictures of kids with belly going like that, reddish hair, etc. I was one of those poster children back then. So again, I say and share these things with you because from time to time, I can look back and say, look at what I have done and look at what I have achieved and look at where I am. I want to say up front that I am in front of you by the grace of God, pure and simple. Okay, I want to put that up front. I ended up getting a scholarship to come to Dartmouth College. That in itself was a miracle because we get one application in my high school. I went to a Presbyterian high school in the middle of nowhere in the Congo. One application comes to our school. The principal calls me in the office and says, would you like to try and see if you can go to America? Me, why me? Would I try to see? Oh, yes, sir, I would like to try. That missionary, Eric Bolton from Texas, who also happened to have been a pilot, would take me on the mission plane 200 kilometers away to wait for me to go through my interviews, to go through my tests, and then take me back to the mission station again. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? There were 144 schools competing for 7 scholarships that year to come to America. Somehow, I ended up among those 7. How? Why? How could that happen? So I come here. So I've grown up in on a mission school campus where we had very strict instructions how you dealt with ladies. It was a mixed school. It was not like Dartmouth, back then. It was a mixed school. How we were supposed to behave, etc. So I had to keep my distance. You shook hands with a young lady and you kept your distance. You didn't want to be in trouble with the professors. And then I land at Kennedy, and the first thing that I see at the airport is boys and girls kissing. What a shock. What a shock. Then I come to Dartmouth, and I'm landing here in the winter. I'm coming from the jungles of Africa, very hot and humid, and it's so cold. And I'm looking for skyscrapers. These are the things that I had heard of. I don't see skyscrapers on this campus. So I go to the foreign student advisor, and I say to him, I think there's been a mistake. I was not supposed to be here. I've heard about Stanford University. Would you please arrange for me to go to Stanford? And the wise man that he was, he said, listen, give us just a few months. If you're not happy after 3 months, we will do everything that we can to get you into Stanford. I thank God for that advice. And I thank God that I followed it. Because at the end of 3 months, I fell in love with Dartmouth. And I have been in love ever since. So just wonderful people that God would bring into my life. I came here, I skipped freshman year. I was in a hurry to go back to my country, took a few exams, skipped freshman year. Started as a sophomore. The next year, I was still in a hurry. I wanted to take graduate school exams, to see what they looked like so that when I did it for real, after my senior year, I would know what I was expecting. And to my surprise, Tuck School sends me a letter saying I was admitted, in business school. I had no concept of business at all. I struggled as an economics major, and here is Tuck giving me, this chance. So you can imagine what my experience was, at least the first few months at Tuck. It was hard work. During the time that I stayed here at Dartmouth, I had to make ends meet. I had to put a little money in my pocket. I got a job as a janitor, so that's where I started. I was in Guile Hall doing my janitorial work. I was promoted, or at least moved from janitor work to actually serving in the cafeteria. All things were getting better. I could now eat food anytime that I wanted to. And later on, Professor John Racias gave me the opportunity to be a lecturer in French. So that was a much bigger, much more, important job. And when I went to Tuck, I was given the opportunity to serve in the library at Tuck School. Again, just the people trying to help me make ends meet. But my colleagues who probably remember me doing that work at Tuck will tell you that they would come at 8 in the morning and find me sleeping. Not because I would be up until 4, 5 in the morning, studying, and they would come in. They would never complain. They never accused me to the administration that I was not doing the work. I still continue to get my check, but I was sleeping on the job. So thank you to my colleagues if they. I wanted this stage to just share a quick story. Many of you may have heard, of that story. It's a story about the starfish. I think you've heard about this businessman who was at a conference. It was a nice, nice facilities by the beach. So it's morning, probably 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. The sun is getting up, and he wants to have a walk to kind of have some fresh air. And there on the beach, going on for miles, are starfish struggling to get back, in the water. The sun is rising, and the man is looking at it, and he's saying, these poor things, they are all going to die. But he doesn't do anything about it. He keeps on walking because he had more important things, in his head. As he walks down the beach, he finds a young boy, probably 12, 13 years old. The young boy is throwing starfish in the ocean, one at a time, as fast as he could. So this businessman doesn't pay attention, passes the young boy, and then reflects and says, wait a minute, I'd better tell this young man something. He comes back and says, look, son, I know you mean well. I know you want to save one or two of these things, but there's nothing that you really can do. You could spend your time better. You are wasting your time. Just go play, with your friends. The young boy looks at him and turns back and then starts throwing starfish in the ocean, even with more vigor, and turns back to the businessman and says, look, for those that I just threw in, I have made a difference for them. So I am sharing that to tell you that at one point in my life, I was that starfish. Okay? Those people who came and either made sacrifices or saw something, in me, which they thought, well, let's give this young man an opportunity, a chance. Those people represented that young man. And I am so thankful to God that today I can stand, in front of you, not as a starfish, but perhaps as that young man, because in the meantime, blessings have also flown my way, and I can now make a difference in the lives of others. So I wanted to just share very quickly, and some of the stories that I'm going to be giving you, seriously, come to the fire chat, because you will have questions and maybe we can discuss more. But I'll just give you some teasers as I go along. My wife and I got married in 1972. We moved to Zaire, back then. Within 6 months of getting there, I was put in jail by the dictator of the country, Mobutu Sese Seko. I was in jail for 5 months. For 2 months, I did not know why I was in jail. And it turned out I was accused of inciting bank employees to rebel against Mobutu's regime. And the law under which I was accused talked about armed rebellion. I have never carried an arm in my life. I don't even know how to shoot a gun. Okay, but I ended up in jail for 5 months. Now, I could probably now come here and tell you, oh, it was so bad, and yeah, it was, but it was a learning, and there was some good, actually, that came out of that. Because while in jail, I was able to teach 150 prisoners English. I used my time, in jail. While in jail, I could have been feeling very bad for myself. And then I read a book called Papillon. Some of you may have read it. I never ate cockroaches in jail, but Papillon ate cockroaches. So I counted myself blessed. I said, God, thank you. I don't have to eat cockroaches. I had helped a friend, introduced him to Citibank, hired him, in fact, and he came, went, accused me of things that I had not done. And my boss calls me, says, this is what your friend has said. How do you react to that? I took the gentleman to lunch, told him the person who told me those false allegations could not lie, and to please stop it if he wanted to advance his career, to do it in honest ways, not by trying to malign others. That gentleman is still my friend. He's ambassador of the Congo, some country in Africa, I won't say which, but he's still a friend, but I needed to confront that. Towards the end of my time with Citibank in the Congo, rumors started flowing around that Mobutu was considering me for governor of the central bank. Can you imagine? So the anxiety for me and for my wife, just tremendous. So we were very thankful when Citibank came and said, you're now moving to Liberia. Okay, you've done what we needed you to do here after 8 years, in the Congo. The choice that I had if Mobutu had come to me with that offer was I either accept it and then get caught up in all of the corruption and what have you, and if I try to resist, lose my life, or say no and lose my life anyway. Okay. But God's timing was perfect, because around about that time, he had put it into the minds of people at Citi, move him out. I went to Liberia. I was told, peaceful country, for 133 years, peace in Liberia. 80, go relax. And within 3 weeks of getting there, that 133 years of peace blown away, okay, by a bloody, bloody coup d'etat. Instead of peace, it was really crisis management. There is an $86,000 story in that, and I'll just give you the conclusion of it. That's one of the revolutionary members pestering me, coming to my office armed, 4 soldiers, for a week, wanting me to pay $86,000 to compensate his cousin who had been fired before I even got there for having stolen $6,000 from the bank. And we had all of the evidence. Okay. How did I get out of that? Okay, maybe we can talk some more at the fire chat. Okay. But I learned, because Citibank New York came and said, go pay that money. My conscience was saying to me, you cannot, because when you pay, this will not be the end of the story. More people will come, my nephew, my cousin, my niece, etc. Where will it end? It was not just going to be Citibank, it was going to be other banks. Chase was there. Chemical Bank used to have a representation there. Tradevco, some Italian bank was there. It was going to go beyond Citibank. My conscience would not let me, even though the headquarters had said, go ahead, pay. I couldn't do it. Somehow I am here standing and talking to you, so obviously things went okay. But if you want to know how and why, okay, there is the fire chat. Then the bank feels very bad. Here we sent you to have peace in Liberia. You ended up crisis managing. We will send you to Kenya. Go do some safari. Enjoy Kenya, beautiful country. I went to Kenya. Within 1 week, there was a coup attempt. People killed. And again, the loan portfolio of the bank, which was decent overnight, over 50% of the portfolio goes sour. So you invest then 2 years of trying to collect money, reposition the business, etc. So now you can imagine that the time comes, the bank says, enough experience in Africa, we want you to go to Latin America, Brazil. So I go to Brazil. Do you think they would just receive me with open arms? When I tell them my story, say, coup d'etat in Liberia, coup attempt in Kenya, what are you doing here? Yeah, but fortunately for me, my experience with coup d'etats were those two that I did share. But in Citibank, and as I went to 12 different countries in my career with the bank, many, many other things, did happen. And I just want to, I will be sharing, a few of those. When I left Citibank, I went to Lloyds TSB Bank, in London. They invited me to work for them. I worked for them for 3 years. And again, just talking about the grace of God, I invited a couple of colleagues from Lloyds to come and see the work of Opportunity International. One of them was a Christian, Catholic. The other one was a non-believer, as they would come. But they went back so excited about the organization and the work that we're doing, trying to help the poor lift themselves out of poverty, that they wanted me to share that with the rest of the executive team at Lloyds TSB Bank. So you can imagine, what was going on in me. Oh, no, really, they won't even want to listen. So we asked for time. I said, okay, 15 minutes. At break time, 80, we're giving you 15 minutes. We went, we shared a small DVD, and my colleagues testified to what they had seen. And I shared a little bit about the organization. The 15 minutes became 30, 35, 40, 45 minutes. We forgot that we were at an offsite to do more important things. Lloyds TSB today is supporting Opportunity. It is a grassroots effort. It's employees of the bank. But I'm actually getting ahead of myself there. Grace of God. From time to time, you're invited to talk to your colleagues. The question is, how did you achieve success in life, 80? Share with us. As a human being, you could go there and say, look, I did this and I did the other thing, and I started out with, by God's grace. Whatever you think I have achieved, I achieved it by God's grace. And I tell them that my whole career at Citi, I have never had to ask for a promotion. never had to ask for a promotion. I would be given a task, I would do it to the best of my ability, and I would be told, it is now time for you to do this, and these are the choices. And I always had a choice. Lloyd's TSB Bank, I did not go after them. They called me. Opportunity International, the interim position, I did not seek it. I was asked to do it. So I tell them, it's by God's grace. I did not know that in that audience, there would be a young woman who one evening would stop me in the halls of the bank in London and ask me whether I was a Christian. To which I said, yes, I am. Have you thought of us starting a small prayer group here at Lloyd's TSB? So, no, but good idea. Catherine, would you please take that idea and drive with it, and I will support you. Thus started a small prayer group at Lloyd's TSB. Grace of God. There are lots of things that I've gone through in my personal life, and I just shared with you a few of them. But when we look at the macro level, we look back to the 70s, early 80s. We went through a crisis, which was called the external debt crisis, and some called it the Latin American debt crisis. In the early 90s, we had a real estate and leveraged buyout crisis. 1997, we had the Asian crisis. 1998, we had the Russian financial and currency crisis. 2001, 2002, we had the Argentinian crisis. Most recently, we've all gone through what some have dubbed the Great Recession, a global crisis which has impacted not only the Western world, but many in the developing world, and especially the poor, who had nothing to do with some of our decisions here in America. In all of these things, our memories as bankers have been very, very short. So we make big mistakes. We think we would learn from them. And a few months, we're back doing exactly the same thing or worse. So many questions we can ask ourselves. Where were the risk managers in these institutions? What happened to the sophisticated risk management tools and models and the arguments that securitization was the solution to risk concentration, etc.? Where were the rating agencies? Where were the auditors, the lawyers, stock analysts? Where were the government regulators? So how realistic is it to expect and demand of market players that they should be delivering earnings quarter after quarter? They should be delivering earnings growth quarter after quarter, regardless of what the realities of the environment would dictate. Just a few days ago, I was reading an article from the Wall Street Journal, actually April 21st. The heading was Debt Masking Under Fire. SEC considers new rules to deter banks from dressing up books. Is that a new phenomenon? and the SEC is just waking up to that now? How can we get businesses to strike the right balance between short-term pressures to deliver numbers and the longer-term shareholder interest? How can we, individually and collectively, strike the right balance between our personal interest and the common good? Can the scourge of greed be eliminated from the business community, from American society? Or is this one of those sins that humanity is going to be incapable of overcoming? Do we each have a remedial role to play here? It seems to me that the issues to be debated at this inaugural Wheelock Conference constitute a promising beginning. I see each one of us as agents of change, whatever our professional lives. So as I look back, I can say with gratitude and in humility that I have had a successful life. The question is this where I want to stop? Yes, I have had success and give the glory to God, and as mentioned earlier, I am thankful for all those who made sacrifices or opened doors for me. I am grateful to those who did me good and to those who did me wrong, because in either case, I learned and I gained. My real desire now is to seek significance, to go from success to significance, to commit the rest of my life to serving others, particularly the poor and marginalized. I am determined to give back. I want to make a difference in the lives of others. And I am doing this through microfinance as one of the tools deployed to alleviate poverty, to contribute to the development and uplifting of individuals, communities, and, God willing, whole nations. So why microfinance? I think you may have read stories, billions of people living in abject and chronic poverty. Over 3 billion people live today on $2 or less. $2 or less. Over 1 billion people live on $1 or less in the world. In Africa, 75% of the population, or about 560 million people, live on $2 or less. And in actual fact, these statistics show an average. In fact, people would go for days without food. 24 of 25 poorest countries in the world are in Africa today. In their book, Enough, Why the World Starves in the Age of Plenty, Roger Thoreau and Scott Gilman are outraged by the data showing that 457 million people in sub-Saharan Africa were undernourished in 2007, and by the fact that 25,000 people throughout the developing world die every day from hunger, malnutrition, and related diseases, according to the UN Health and Food Organizations. In my own country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there is great suffering. More than 5 million people died between 1998 and 2003. More than 5 million people. That's the state of Colorado disappearing in 5 years. You've not heard about those stories. You've not read about them. But the International Rescue Committee says 5.4 million people, Congolese, died from wars, disease, malnutrition. Conditions in the Congo were bad in the 70s. They are much worse today. Less than 1% of the population of my country has a bank account. Less than 1%. 68 million people, less than 1%, have a bank account. Can we afford to be indifferent? Are we overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the problem? The young man of the starfish story was alone, but he was making a difference to starfish, one at a time. Can we just rely on traditional aid? You know, there is a book by Dambisa Moyo, young economist from Zambia, called Dead Aid. In her book, she argues that traditional aid has not worked, that the countries which actually received the most aid in Africa are poorer today than they were before receiving the aid. When you send food to a country, and that food is sold at prices which are much less than local producers because it is subsidized here, it kills local production. And so it makes people then dependent on food from here. When you send mosquito nets to an area, in Africa where local producers may have been producing their own mosquito nets, but you can give it to them cheaper, the intentions are good, but it kills that local production and what have you. So no wonder we've had those problems of poor countries going poorer, even though lots of aid has been put there. And that's why it is so important that we look at microfinance as just another tool to start to make a difference in poverty alleviation. So let me just very quickly run through Opportunity International, because that's the one where I am serving in the microfinance world. It's a Christian nonprofit microfinance organization. We are motivated by Jesus Christ's call to serve the poor. We offer services to people with faith and people without faith. We have people who are supporters, can be people of faith and people without faith. What motivates us is making a difference in the lives of the poor. We believe in giving a hand up, not a handout. We want our clients to be self-sustaining. We want our microfinance institutions to be self-sustaining. We are supported by individuals, foundations, corporations, and governments in 5 countries: US, UK, Canada, Germany, and Australia. We operate in 27 countries today. We have 45 implementing partners. We are serving close to 1.9 million people. Each one of those is supporting another 4 to 8 people, between people they provide employment for, family members, orphans, widows, and what have you. So the impact is much bigger than that. 85% of our clients are women. Historically, 98% of our loans have been repaid. I think last year, because of the crisis, that percentage would probably drop down to perhaps around 95%. Still very high, everything considered. We leverage every dollar that we are given, 1 to 1.87, because we use the savings and deposits from our clients, and we can also borrow from local banks and from capital markets. The methodology that we use is what we call trust group. 10 to 30 poor people get together, they cross-guarantee each other, and we give them a loan, to do their business. We provide them training 4 to 8 weeks before they get their first loan, and the first loan could be as little as $60. And that opportunity, we have huge ambitions. It's an ambition to reach 30 million lives, to impact 30 million lives in Africa. And to do that, we want to raise $125 million. We started that about 2.5 years ago. Today, as I speak to you, we've raised already $101 million. So it was not impossible. When we set those targets, we were concerned. Why? We want to make a difference in the lives of Africans. You can then imagine why my wife and I would be excited about this organization. We saw a compelling case, making a difference in the lives of others. We saw ourselves as having been blessed and desiring to give back. We saw an organization that was very well run, an organization that understood what it meant to be good stewards of whatever was entrusted to us. And so she and I joined Opportunity. And as we've gone to visit our clients, we've had many stories of clients well impacted. And that impact is seeing them achieving dignity and self-respect, being able to put food on the table, clothe themselves, have shelter over their heads, and send their kids to school. And so it has been a privilege. It has been very rewarding. So I want to close now just to read from a book, which is a book that has sold more copies than any other book in history. It's from the Bible. It's from the book of Job. When I went to the gate of the city and took my seat in the public square, the young men saw me and stepped aside, and the old men rose to their feet. The chief men refrained from speaking and covered their mouths with their hands. The voices of the nobles were hushed, and their tongues stuck to the roof of their mouths. Whoever heard me spoke well of me, and those who saw me commended me, because I rescued the poor who cried for help, and the fatherless who had none to assist him. The man who was dying blessed me. I made the widow's heart sing. I put on righteousness as my clothing. Justice was my robe and my turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was a father to the needy. I took up the case of the stranger. I broke the fangs of the wicked and snatched the victims from their teeth. We can make a difference together and as individuals. We can make the widow sing. Eleazar, Wheelock Society, Dartmouth Apologia. You are making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thank you. Thank you very much, AT. Is this on? Thank you. Thank you very much, AT. In the interest of time, we are going to defer all the questions to the now highly anticipated fireside chat. All right, so here are a few administrative details for the rest of the day. Outside this room are drinks and restrooms, although not necessarily needed in that order. Be sure to get, if you want a good seat, arrive at each panel early. At 11 o'clock, the first set of panels will begin. Healthcare and medicine, government and law, creative arts. That's about 5 minutes. So there will be 3 sets of panels, one running in the Stoneman classroom just outside this hall, and 2 more just down the hall in the Tuck Room class cluster, the GM and Rosenwald classrooms. Signs and student guides, each with a green tag, will help you get there. The first set of panels will end on time at 11:50. At noon, the second set of panels will run in the same rooms, business, science, and the academy. At 1 p.m., a plated lunch will be waiting for you in the PepsiCo dining room. That's the same place where you had breakfast. We encourage you to seek out the panelists and moderators during this lunch for conversation, as they will also be looking to engage with you. At 1:45 p.m., again, the fireside chat will be in Stell Hall. We'll try to figure out as many of AT's secrets as possible. And then the final 2 panel discussions will start at 2:30 p.m. in the General Motors and Rosenwald classrooms on the Byrne classroom level. Those panels will be social service and a Christian-Muslim interfaith dialogue, which will focus on the relationship between faith and reason in Islam. And at 3:30 p.m. to close the day, we encourage you meet with the panelists and your fellow participants in Stell Hall for a reception and mixer. Our panelists and sponsors make this event possible. We're immensely grateful for the time and the effort they've dedicated to making this day happen. We thank you all for joining us today, and we hope this will be an enriching and enlightening experience. So that is all. Feel free to follow people out the doors to the panels.
That's it.